Hello, Goodie Two Shoes. My name is Aubrey Rose. Welcome back to my channel. So today I am going to be showing you guys my formula for figuring out how long it takes you to write your novel. So first off, why even timeline it? Why can't I just write it and then fix it and then publish it? Well, this is just to help you figure out when you can publish something and also to kind of give yourself deadlines. So this is self-imposed deadlines. I don't know about you, but I want writing to be my job. And jobs normally have some outside force pushing you to do your job. Like you have a boss, you have peer pressure, and then you also have a deadline. You have something that you need to do and you have a deadline by when you need to do it. For writing, I have to be my own boss. I have to be my own peer pressure. I have to give myself my own work, and I also have to have my own deadline. So that can be really hard to do, especially if you've never really published your book before and you don't really know the full process, you haven't seen it, you don't know your process yet. This is just kind of a way to help you figure that out. Question number one to help you figure out how long it's going to take you to write your novel is, how much time do you have a day to write? So whether it's like an hour a day, or you might have to change this question to how much time a week or how much time a month you have to write, depending on how busy you are. If you're really serious about writing, I would encourage you to take like a really hard look at yourself, at your schedule. Where are you wasting time on YouTube and Netflix and Instagram, and what time could you be using to write? Could you go to bed earlier and then wake up earlier so that you can write before the rest of your day? Could you spend less time chilling on Netflix or on YouTube and spend a little bit of that time writing? I fall into this pit as well. I use or waste so much time on different media instead of writing my own, and I would prefer to make my own media for people to consume instead of consuming media. So maybe that can be an encouragement to you. So hopefully you have at least an hour, maybe 10 minutes a day to write. But for this example, I'm going to give you an example for a formula, like a math solution. We're going to use the example of 1 hour a day. So let's say you have 1 hour a day to write. We can move on to the next question. Question number two is, how many words can you write in that hour, or in the set time that you have to write? So the average is 1,000 words per hour, but you may want to break this up into sprints. Maybe you can write more time in a 6-10 minute sprints than you could in like the full hour, or something along those lines. Basically, I would encourage you to figure out what way works best to you or for you, and then also see how much time you can write in that time. We'll use again the example of 1,000 words per hour. So let's say you have 7 hours a week to write, and so 7,000 words would be like how many words you would write a week, roughly. Also, I'd recommend not doing like, I've done this before where I'm like, well, that one time I wrote like 2,000 words in an hour, I wrote 1,000 words in a half an hour. I can definitely do that again all the time. Don't do that. Don't do that. Do your average, maybe even go a little bit below average. Unless like big goals really push you and you know that you've hit the goals before when you push yourself and that encourages you, then definitely do that. For me, I have these massive goals and then I never end up hitting them, and then that makes me very discouraged with myself. So make goals that you can hit and then start pushing yourself as you hit the goals more and it gets less hard, then you can push yourself more. But for right now, just focus on what you can do right now. Question number three is, how long do you want your draft to be? So this is really hard, especially for pantsers, especially if you haven't written a novel before. So basically I would try to help you, or I would say figure out what your genre is. And if you don't know what your genre is, I would say try to aim for 70 to 80,000 words. So the reason why I say 70 to 80, which for some people might be like a really small amount of words, if you want to be traditionally published, it's better to write less words because it's more expensive for a publishing company to publish a larger book. And if you're not established, that could be a buffer. So I'd recommend going lower if you want to traditionally publish. If you're not worried about that, if you're just self-publishing, don't even worry about it. But I would recommend still having that goal, so that way you can kind of figure out when your first draft is going to be done. So the average romance novel is 60 to 90,000 words. It can even go as low as 50,000 words if you're just writing like a quick, cute, sweet, like YA romance or summer romance. If you're wanting something just short, that is more of a novella. But yeah, so 60 to 90 for romance. For fantasy, I know that's very broad, but for fantasy, it's around 90,000 to 120,000 words. The average horror is 100K. But a good book length is somewhere between 70,000 and 120,000 words. Again, I would recommend going 70 to 80, maybe 85, not too much higher than that. So question number 4 is, what projects, yes, plural projects, are you going to be working on? So the reason I recommend doing at least 2 projects is because you're going to have your first draft and then you're going to need to let it sit. We'll talk about that a little bit more later. And then you're going to want to have something to do during that time when you're letting your first draft sit. So I would recommend a secondary project, so that way you can work on them back and forth. And if you're trying to traditionally publish, most likely you'll have 2 novels that are pretty close to being done or ready to publish, ready to query. If you're self-publishing, you have 2 books ready to publish pretty quickly together if you work on them back to back. So pretty much only pros, unless you don't have another idea, then yeah. Come up with another idea. So for our example, we'll say our 2 projects are, one's a romance that we're going to do super quick. It's going to be like a little novella, summer beach read, and it's going to be 50,000 words. That's our goal for the romance. And then we also have this fantasy idea that we came up with a really long time ago that we've always wanted to write. It's pretty much still in the brainstorming, outlining stages, but we're going to write that one as well. And we're going to say that that one's going to be 80,000 words. So now that we have those, we know how long it takes us to write, we know how much time we have to write, we know how long it's going to take us to write those books. We'll get into the formula later with our word count goals. Question number 5 is, what stage are your stories at? So let's say for our romance, we've outlined it already, we've plotted it, we know where the story is going, we're ready to first draft. But the fantasy one, still in the outlining phases, still in like the brainstorming phases and stages, and we're going to need some time to outline that and plot it and before we can draft it. So I know not everyone's a plotter, but for the plotters, I would just recommend, taking a little bit of time to plot your books and just being able to plan that out. Question number 6 is, how many drafts do you think you'll need? So for this one, it's going to be kind of tricky to answer if you've never done this before, but I'd recommend at least 5 or 6 drafts, and I will tell you why. So your first draft is basically just you telling yourself the story. The second draft is you making that story legible. Like, what the heck were you writing? We're gonna figure that out in the second draft. And that could even be like redrafting now that you know what the story is about. Basically just making it easier and cleaner for like your critique partner to read. You may even need a third draft before your critique partner can read it, depending on how messy your first draft is. Just, it happens to all of us. The first draft is supposed to be messy. Yeah, so then you would give it to like a critique partner. I would recommend finding a critique partner if you don't have one already. And then they're going to read it and they're going to give you feedback. Basically just like the big picture things. Does the story work? Is this the story that I want to tell? Is the story working? Your critique partner will help you with that. And so then once you get your feedback from your critique partner, your third or fourth draft will be going over that feedback and making it ready for beta readers. So then you'll give it to beta readers. Hopefully everything's like cleaned up, fixed up, and you're basically just like, hey, what do you like? What do you not like? You can't see it anymore. What are the things that I need to fix in this draft? So then your beta readers will look at it. They'll give you feedback. They'll tell you what they liked, what they didn't like, what they would change. And then you'll only change what you want to change, what you think will make the story better. And then you'll give it to an editor, and then you will have to incorporate the editor's feedback. Then I'd recommend like a final read through, and then most likely your book will be ready to query, ready to publish, whatever it is that you are hoping to accomplish with this book. So that's roughly like 5, 6, 7 drafts. So yeah, it definitely takes a little while. You know, sometimes the drafts are hard. Sometimes you want to like speed up the process a little bit. I'd recommend like really spending time making your book as good as you can make it. Excuse me. Question number 7, how long do you want to let your draft sit? So again, this can be tricky if you've never done it before. So you need at least 2 weeks, and that's really not even close to how much time that you need. I've seen people like they finish their first draft and they're like, oh yay, excited, and they go right back to the beginning. Do not do this. So really, it can only go wrong. So number 1, you're gonna look at it and you're gonna remember everything you wrote, even though like it might not be there on the page, and you're gonna think it's the best thing ever. And you finally wrote your novel, and then you're going to send it to beta readers who are wasting both their time and yours because they can't read your book because it's not really a book yet. It's not finished. You're a little too excited, a little too hasty, and it's not ready for other people to see it yet. But you can't see that because you haven't let it sit yet. Or you're gonna look at it and you're like, what the heck is even this? What did I write? This is awful. And you're gonna scare yourself into never writing again. So really only bad things can happen. So let your draft sit. Let it sit for probably at least as long as it took you to write it. You really need to forget your draft. You need to forget everything that you wrote so that when you come back to your first draft, you can look at it with fresh eyes. You can see the good, you can see the bad, and you can see how you need to change it to make it work. Really need to let it sit. So I would recommend like 3 months, because we'll get into this a little bit later, or did I forget to talk about this? Writing your book should take only 3 months, as that should be the max if you can. That's what Stephen King says. He says that writing a book should take a season. I definitely agree. We'll talk a little bit more in the formula how long it should take you to write the examples, but to write your book, and yeah, it should really only take about 3 months. So I would recommend letting it sit for 3 months, your first project, so that way you can draft your second project in that time, and just like let it completely sit while you work on writing your second draft. It'll take roughly 3 months, maybe less, maybe shouldn't take more. So 3 months is a good place to let it sit, so that way you can just come back to it when you're done drafting your second project. I know that was kind of long-winded. Basically, just let it sit, draft your second project. Don't look at it until that first draft of the second project is done, and then you can take a look at your first project again. Yes, question 8 is, at what stage do you want to give your draft to critique partner and beta readers? We kind of went over this already. I'd recommend critique partner after second or third draft. And that, even then, that's a little iffy. For me, I want my draft to be like as good as I can make it before I send it to anyone. Like, I know a lot about story structure, I know a lot about plot, I know kind of how I want a book to flow, and so I want to get it as close to that, as close to perfect. Basically, like, I think it's perfect, and then send it to someone else so they can show me everything that's wrong with it, because I've been staring at it too long and I can't see anything that's wrong with it anymore. That's kind of when I want to give it to critique partner and beta readers. This is the only time that I really want anyone to see it, because I know what a story needs. This could be potentially dangerous. I may need to send it to a critique partner earlier. That way I don't make huge mistakes and kind of end up in a roadblock if I don't see like a glaring plot hole that my critique partner finds right away. I'm like, oh, now I have to rewrite my whole novel that I thought was perfect. So we'll see how that works. Probably after 2 or 3 drafts, it would be good to send it to a critique partner after you've incorporated critique partner feedback and fixed anything else that you wanted to fix. Then when you think like it's perfect, pretty much send it to beta readers and just get some outside reader feedback on how the story works. Are there any sentences that don't make any sense? Or did a character's name change halfway through the novel? Something along those lines. Like, what little things do you need to fix? Critique partners, beta readers can really help you with that. And then, yeah, you will need an editor after that. So beta readers will probably be after critique partner, so probably like 4th or 5th draft, maybe even 6th, something like that. And then after that, editor. And then you again. So, yes. Question number 9 is, how long will it take you to write your books? So for the formula for the first draft, this is the easiest part of it, honestly, and it's really fun. So you're gonna take your word count goal. So for our example romance of 50,000 words, it's 50,000 words. Then you're gonna divide it by the 7,000 words that you can write a week. And so that's going to come out to about 7 weeks. So instead of doing 7 weeks exactly, I'm going to say give yourself a deadline of 2 months, 8 weeks. That gives you 1 week of buffer time for, like, maybe you're not feeling well, maybe you go on a trip or something. You have a week of buffer time. So write your romance novel in 2 months. And so that will be really good for your first draft. So then let it sit for 3 months so you can plot, and I said 4 months so you can plot and draft your fantasy novel. Your fantasy novel, if it is 80,000 words, and then again you can write 7,000 words a week. I believe that came out to 11 weeks, so that's about 3 months if you include a week for buffer time. So yes, fantasy novel should take 3 months, maybe a little bit longer if you want to plot it. So yeah, let your first draft sit for 3-4 months, however long it takes you to write your second project. And then read through your romance novel, make it legible. So that'll probably, hopefully, only take a month or 2. Now that you kind of know where the story's going, know how to make it work, you can rework it. And so that leaves us at 6, we're at 8 months. So then you can send it to your critique partner while you start fixing your fantasy book. Hopefully, critique partner feedback should only take a couple of weeks or maybe a month for them to get back to you. I would give it at least a month, but yeah, as soon as your critique partner has feedback for you, get it back, work through whatever it needs. Take about a month to do that before sending it to beta readers, and yeah, they'll have things for you to change. So take a few weeks, a few months to work on that, and then you will send it to an editor about a year after you've started, most likely. About a month later, you'll get your edits back, and then you can incorporate the last few things, give it a final read through. And a little over a year after you've started, so if we're going with that 1 hour a day kind of writing, that should be how long it takes you to figure out, or to either publish it or just start querying it. So a little over a year. And so this is where it comes to, like, well, how long do you want to spend writing your novel? Do you want to spend a year on it if you only have an hour a day to draft it? Or do you want to spend more time writing and more time drafting, so that way it doesn't take you as long to do that? This really, like, encouraged me and hit me hard, because I stay at home all the time. I basically have all the time in the world to write. Technically, I don't have all the mental energy, because writing takes a lot of mental energy to write up every day, or all day every day, but I do have the time to. So this was encouraging me to really get my life together, get my drafting, stamina up to par, so that way I can really write, draft, finish my books sooner, because I have a lot of time and I can just do it. Use the formula, the how long it takes you, or how long you can write, how long it takes you, or how many words you can write in that time based on your word count goal, how long it will take you, and then kind of going back and forth. Like it should only take a month for everything after that, or like, you know, 1 month with a critique partner, 1 month going over critique partner feedback, 1 month sending it to beta readers, and then 1 month going over beta reader feedback, another month to send it to the editor, another month to go over editing feedback, just kind of back and forth like that. It could take a little bit longer, and it might, but I'd recommend kind of using that to help guide you. But yeah, some of it might take less than a month. Like it might not take a month for you to get feedback back. So then you can spend a little bit more time working through plot problems and plot holes if you have them, if you need to. So yes, basically, yeah, the secondary project did kind of fall by the wayside. You can spend a little bit more time letting your draft sit and working on your secondary project if that works better for you, if that's something that you want to do, or you can let it fall by the wayside and then start working on it after you're done with the book. Because once you have a book, like, you can publish it, you can start querying it, and then you can spend more time on your other projects. So yeah, this was kind of long-winded. There's lots of information being thrown at you. I hope this helps you kind of outline, timeline, and give yourself deadlines for writing. I hope this works for you. And yeah, let me know if it does work for you, when your novel will be coming out based on this outline, deadline. And yeah, thank you guys for watching. I will see you in the next one. Bye!